But you have to.
Okay.
Yeah, welcome everyone to this Pi Ladies meeting. I don't even see actually how many people are joining remotely, but maybe we know. So also hello from the from the remote people. Yeah, this is the Pi Ladies Hamburg event. We are regularly organizing meetups for minorities, in particular also with the focus on for women and marginalized groups. And I can also speak a bit louder. That's
Yeah.
also an option.
Just when people ask questions later, make sure that you repeat the question.
Yes. Yeah, and today we have a panel about the skills that are required in times of generative AI and AI agents. And I'm very happy to have some support here. So maybe we make a very quick introduction round.
Sure.
You want to start, Anastasia?
Yes, absolutely. Hi, everyone. My name is Anastasia Karavdina. I'm a data scientist, and currently I'm working as a solution architect at Vattenfall. This is an energy company by day, I would say, and the rest of the day I'm a data science mentor. And I guess both of these are reasons why I'm here, but I will tell you more later.
Perfect. Thanks a lot. Ellen, you want to continue?
Yes, I hope the sound works fine. Can you
And
just give me a quick...
Yes.
Okay, nice. I'm Ellen. I'm very sorry that I can't be there in person today, but I catched a cold as every third person right now, but I'm happy that I'm good enough to join remotely. Gives me a bit of Corona flashbacks. I am a full stack engineer at 1,5 Grad and mostly using AI for my programming in my day-to-day life. So very, very much looking forward on the discussion we have today. And besides my paid work, I am doing a tech podcast, Unmuted. So that's the both main things I do in IT. Very happy to be here today and meet you at least in 2 dimensions.
Yeah, I'm actually also a bit confused because I do not really know. I see you at least 3 times.
It is pretty.
Yeah, I can also introduce myself. I'm an AI team lead in a big logistics company. We're doing dynamic pricing, also working with AI, the more traditional AI in the project, but it's augmented with generative AI. And it's also coming more and more that we use it during our daily developer work. So I'm actually also really curious to hear how you all of you are using it. Yeah, do we have directly some questions from the audience? If not, we can also make a very quick round and just explain how you're using AI, maybe generative AI during your developer work. Where are your touch points?
This is a great question. I would say I'm using it essentially everywhere because on one side I'm a kind of part of a development team, right? So essentially a focus of our team, of my team, is to develop AI-based solution. And this is, of course, includes the generative AI, but not limited to it. So we're also doing some forecasting. So maybe we can chat about this afterwards.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we're essentially everything where you can imagine, like automatization, ML, AI. Of course, there are many buzzwords which we are using, but we're also developing a lot of solutions. And obviously, significant part of our portfolio is GenAI-based things.
Sorry, it's popping up again.
Right, but on the other hand, as a user, obviously, I also profit from this AI-based solution, right? So I would say, maybe every day I'm talking with ChatGPT, right, or doing some things. Obviously, like translation is a very important thing for me because I'm not native speaker in most of the languages I have to speak during the day. So this is also a great support for me. And everything, I mean, almost every service you touch contains some AI, and this is really cool.
Yes.
What about you?
About me, I would love to use ChatGPT at work, but we are team Copilot, if we like it or not. But yeah, I'm also using it almost every day. And I mean, it's already existing for a while, but for some tasks like writing tickets, as an example, I also have a custom GPT because it's just the framework is always the same, so it helps a lot. And we also have it more and more that we are augmenting the developer work. with the help of LLMs, which sometimes is working well and sometimes not so well. So I'm also really curious to hear about your experience, also the experience in the audience. Yeah, and then it's the content specific stuff. As I said before, like we have a project that is more in the range of traditional AI, but parts like explainable AI can also be driven by generative AI. Yeah. Ellen, how about you?
So my company does have AI in the product, but my team is not implementing the AI. So I'm not actively developing that one. But as you also mentioned already, I use it in my IDE, for example. I use Cursor, which is a bit of a. Do you know Cursor? I don't know. Is there a head? Can everyone in the audience? I can't see you, but how many of you used Cursor already?
One person? 1%.
Okay, because I tried to use Copilot in WebStorm and also VS Code before, but Cursor gives it another level because it's really baked into the IDE. So I don't really thumbs up is here on the screen at least. If you didn't try it, they have I think a 10-day trial, which is really nice because I was pretty conservative with using Copilot, and with Cursor it's actually working quite nice. So that's actually my IDE supporting me with AI. And then for the podcast, I use ChatGPT a lot for transcribing an episode or getting ideas for tech content. And then in the personal life, I love to play around with recipes and generating images. I think that's what everyone did from time to time. Yeah, that's my AI experience.
Perfect. Yeah, maybe there are questions from the audience, or maybe you can also say a bit what's your experience. Who's using Copilot, ChatGPT, and Co. during the daily work? One person?
I'm using pretty much all the tools.
All of them?
Yeah.
And what's your experience?
I think some tools, in my experience, have been really good for some kind of tasks. Like everyone else, about a year or 2 years ago, I started with ChatGPT. That's the first place everyone is going to, and then we kind of explored or discovered other tools. So now I'm using Claude for something. I also, a few days ago, started using Notebook LM for the first time. I always heard the word. I'm like, okay, I gotta go. And it turned out to be really well for studying something, because there you can like put your sources and ask it questions that makes it really reliable to like know this is the source that I'm studying from, and it's not just generated word after word and in some sort of way. What I'm more interested in about generative AI is building things with it. So not just using it for learning or everyday tasks, but building a small application with that. And that's what I've been using Cursor a lot with. So that really helps. I go to ChatGPT or Claude, I start with there and I say, okay, this is something I want to build. It's a fun idea. And then it like spits out the project for me. It's like, oh, you can start with Python and you can do like all these things. I'm not an engineer, so like all of that stuff was new for me 2 months ago. And then I move over to Cursor, and this is where it's also fun, but it's also problematic because it like makes me work in circles sometimes. Like, I forget. Now you should do this. Now you should do this. Okay, I want to start a new project now. So that's my experience.
Okay, great. Ellen, by the way, did you hear that? Yes, right? Okay. You're using Cursor in a similar way?
No, I think a little different. So I come from a very heavy engineering background. As far as I understood correctly, she was talking about that she's using it for new stuff and then get reminded in parts where she's stuck, right? Is that?
Yeah, for the
Yeah. So I'm mostly building Cursor for making side projects. not to make money out of, but to just to learn things, right?
Yeah.
And I'm a product manager by profession, and I want to be able to build things with AI. So this is why Cursor allows me to code. I don't know how to code, but it also is fun to get started on. But then I realized that I actually need to know a lot of fundamentals to be able to say like, no, this is wrong, or like I want to move in a different direction. Sometimes you can't just accept all the suggestions and see where it goes. Uh, that gives me a lot of failure in my projects, in my experience so far.
Mm-hmm. So the way that I use Cursor, it helps me a lot with repetitive tasks. So, for example, I started refactoring, and at some point, if I had done it like 2 times, or I restructure a class and then I want to do the same thing to another class, Cursor is already proposing me to do it. And there is a baked-in chat that I can just pop a question in or a TypeScript error, and then just right next to the code, Cursor does help me with debugging errors a lot. So that's how I use it. And I think that Cursor is way smarter than, for example, Copilot was. So the Copilot code always gave me a bit of the, ooh, this looks like cold smell creep, which Cursor doesn't as much. So in terms of quality, it seems way better to me, just from how I was using it.
But this is actually a very interesting direction. I mean, I don't know names of all the tools because I personally don't use it. But nowadays you have a lot of no-code tools which do exactly this, right? You do a textual description of what you like or what you want to build, like you just want to try the idea. You don't have like team of developers, right? And you just use this tool which creates the entire app for you. It's kind of mind blowing when you see it for the first time. I mean, the app maybe like a real software engineer would kind of criticize a lot, but it works, right? And it helps people to see, okay, is it possible to do? We want to play around with it, right? And see some functionality which can be added. Right? And I think this is also pretty cool because it also takes some load from the developer team, because you don't need to develop every single kind of proof of a concept again and again. You can maybe start with some prototype.
And how are you using it in your daily?
You mean no code? No, this I don't use it. I just have heard about this in some podcasts because I think the product management community is very inspired by this, right? So the people who can't code themselves but really have a lot of ideas we want to try, I think it's a nice kind of compromise, if you like. We in my company we are not using this tool, or at least I'm not aware. Maybe someone is using this. So far they did not bring to us any prototypes. So therefore I'm not sure if anyone is doing this, but I can imagine it might happen one day that instead of oh, I have this idea, I will get like, this is the code I got from this tool. Can you please develop this further and put this into the production? Now, in our company, we're actually using Copilot. We also Copilot team, so to speak, for both for good and bad things. For Copilot, GitHub, right? And maybe we can distinguish also. So there is a Copilot for GitHub and Copilot for Microsoft, right? Which I'm not sure which one is worse, but both exist. And actually, I mean, I'm not very active in development anymore, to be honest. But my team kind of say that Copilot helps them a lot in their day-to-day task. Maybe because there is no alternative and it's better than nothing, but in principle they think this is quite nice tool. And the Copilot for the Microsoft is absolutely helpful for our business partners, because many things you had to build few years ago, like so when ChatGPT came out, everyone said, oh look, we are using Microsoft, we have SharePoint, we have a lot of documents, I want ChatGPT for this SharePoint, right? And many companies, what we were doing, we were building their own ChatGPT, right? Which was maybe fun in the beginning, but when you do it 10 times for different departments, it's not so much fun anymore. So I think here Copilot kind of rescues us, because this is a built-in solution essentially, right? So if you have Microsoft license, you can get a Copilot license, and when you have a built-in ChatGPT, which will talk with your data and do some stuff.
Yeah.
I would say kind of as a data scientist, I'm still not very satisfied with what it does, but it's definitely better than nothing. And in our, let's say, reality, when we are dealing with millions of documents, it's very, very helpful.
You mean the normal Copilot, which is reading your Teams messages and your
Exactly,
emails?
or answering your emails, right?
Yeah, perfect. Are there any questions from the audience? Something that you want to know from us?
Yeah, I have one question. So Vattenfall is a big corporation. It means the
It is.
sensitive data and non-disclosure and confidentiality is a big topic. So for example, in my company, I also work for a big corporation. It's a big topic not to take any data out for ChatGPT.
Mhm, exactly.
example. And in the house developed or trained model would give you pretty poor results. You will be very, how to say, not impressed. So how does it work in your
What do we
company?
do? Okay, maybe I can repeat the question for the people who are connecting online. So the question is about data security on all confidential documents you deal with if you are part of a big organization, which Vattenfall is a big organization, of course.
Corporation.
Or corporation, yeah, this is a good word. I mean, first of all, I mentioned in the beginning I'm using ChatGPT, but I must say I'm using it privately, right? So I'm not allowed to use ChatGPT for the reason you just mentioned. The Copilot in this case is kind of offering you quite secure solution, right? So you can define the level of the documents. So like in Vattenfall, you have several levels of security for various documents, right? And it's kind of essentially your Copilot have access only to the documents you have access to yourself, right? So if I'm not allowed to see something, my Copilot agent will never be able to have access to this, right? And this is how it is restricted. So essentially the promise from Microsoft that this stay within your tenant, so it has the same security measures as our documents you store, right? Regarding like, okay, what you do if you are not satisfied with Copilot, and this is why my team has a lot of work still to do, because essentially you also can have some documents which are more difficult, let's say. So, I mean, Copilot is good if you have just the text data, but as you might know, in most of the documents you have some charts, you have some diagrams, right? Think about business reports, think about marketing reports, which have a lot of shiny graphics in it. So it's quite difficult for normal Copilot to kind of process this data. And this is why in-house solutions still, I think, will be needed, because when you are working with an organization, you know better the kind of landscape. And this is where you can, well, maybe fine-tune the models or build the in-house solution with existing models, which will be much, much better than this very average Copilot model, which is used underneath, right? So I guess in the end of the day, you need both. But there are tasks where you don't need very, very powerful models, and this is where Copilot can help.
I think also no one gets the idea of training their own language model. You always have a pre-trained model that you're using.
Right,
No
right.
one
You
does
can
that.
fine-tune it through. If you are
Yeah.
doing, I know like our legal department, we have fine-tuned model because of special language which is used there. Yeah. But you're right, I mean, nowadays.
And it would be in a secure environment, right? So the data will be contained, whatever you put in your AI tool. And that's the whole point.
Yeah, I
It
mean,
doesn't
maybe,
go out there and
right. I guess there are like two ways. I'm not sure if you want to go very technical, but in principle, you can retrain or train the model, or you can use like a database of your documents, right? So it's a RAG solution. So retrieval augmented generation. So essentially what it stands for, you have like your database with your own documents, and you use the very generic LLM, and then you kind of tell it, okay, I have some information there, which is very important, please use it when you generate the answer for this. And this is how you can essentially balance like very generic and powerful model and your own knowledge base, so to speak.
Maybe Ellen, how are you doing it? LLM is knowledge base, customer or company specific knowledge bases. How is it done in your company? Or do you have something like this? That's also a question, maybe.
Not at my team. So actually the whole discussion also about confidentiality is still to be defined. So the AI mostly gets to see the code that I'm allowed to check out, but it's not connected to any customer database, or so there's not really sensitive data except for the business logic that we implement in the code. Yeah, but that's actually, so business logic, I had one more thought on that goes a bit sideways of the question, so feel free to interrupt me. But I think, so a question that I get a lot is, does it still make sense to learn programming? Can't I just use AI? I think that we all were kind of, I don't know, opposed to that question already. And a colleague of mine once said a very smart sentence, and he said, you won't be replaced by AI, but you will be replaced by someone who uses it. And this is what I try to tell people in my surrounding as well. AI is not a threat, but it's a tool that you can use if you know how to use it. And one thing that AI is not too good at is, for example, the business logic of your domain or the business logic of the code that you are implementing, except for maybe the 10th e-commerce shop that you are implementing. AI might already be pretty good at doing that because there's lots of them out there and also lots of code that they can look at and learn from. But the business logic that I'm implementing, I have to understand, for starters, and how should an AI understand that if it's a unique project or a unique company that you are working for? How do you feel? Did you ever feel threatened by AI, for example?
Not really. I mean, I always have to laugh when I hear it's like, you don't need to learn programming anymore because AI will replace you. Because when I think about what you do when you're working like a big enterprise, right? So I mean, the amount of time you actually code is relatively small, to be honest, right? So you spend a lot of time in the discussion, in the understanding the business logic, right? So understanding how to make it happen within your organization, because you have like a free system, we're all using different tech stack and you need to connect them somehow, right? And there are many things which are very non-standard, and I doubt that we will, I mean, I will be very happy if we reach the point when you don't need to code anymore, but unfortunately it's...
No, I love coding.
No, but it's fine in the future, right? And then I also was reading an article other day from Tim O'Reilly. He's the founder of O'Reilly publishing house. We all know the books from O'Reilly. And he shared quite interesting thought, which I totally agree. I mean, he mentioned maybe we should stop talking about like programming, end of programming, and just thinking about another era of programming, right? Like it was, like if we look back like 50 years ago, when people were programming, they were doing quite different things compared to what we do now. And this is essentially what's happening right now, right? So what we will still do this, it just maybe will be a bit different compared to what we did, let's say, 10 years ago, right? And it might be for good and for bad, but I think we all will vote for automatization, all these boring things we don't want to do anymore. And I'm pretty sure there still will be a lot of fun stuff.
I can also completely agree with what you said, but what's interesting is that there's always these phases of refactoring and polishing code so that you make it reusable. And actually this business logic is then not anymore in part of the code because we want to have it as generic as possible so that it can be reused, which a bit is a contradiction. And I know there will always be a business layer around it, but I think that this, let's say, augmented coding will become more and more important. So parts of it you will not write anymore because you will just have a template for it, but then kind of making it usable in a way that it can be applied for your business case will still be a skill. And I think what's also important is that now kind of we go often the path of, okay, we need some code to solve this business solution or this business problem. And maybe in the end, okay, we see the business problem and we just see what's the best tool for it. And if it's a no-code tool, then it will be a no-code tool. And if we need some in-house solution, we will do something in-house. And I think this the questioning of what solution is really the correct one, and here I'm also really curious what maybe you and your companies are talking about. I mean, AI is also not for free, so and I think we're not really talking about that. But yeah, I think the business problem will be more in the focus. So it's not the general coding skills that are required anymore, but the very specific ones, putting it into a solution.
Right. I mean, we do see this, right? So if you look from this from the perspective of data scientists, right? So some of you, I see quite young faces here, but some of you might remember, like, if you were doing data science like 10 years ago, right? So what you did, you start with Jupyter Notebook, you play with a model from scikit-learn, right? And essentially you stop there because this is your artifact, right? So this little piece of the code. Nowadays, it's absolutely unacceptable if you just stop there because there is no business value, right? And then this is essentially, I mean, it's, again, it has good and bad sides. So the good side, you're kind of forced to think in this business domain, right? So you need to think, if you're developing some model, why you're doing this and what value it creates. But on the bad side is like the requirement on the data scientists are huge, right? So you should be like a full stack developer or almost full stack developer because you need to take care about all the things to prepare the data, right? About putting the model in the production, creating a shiny UI, maybe for this yourself, right? And this is also where I believe these no-code tools might be quite helpful for people who are actual developers because you can't learn absolutely everything and you will need to help yourself, right?
Yeah.
I think that anyways, if you start to be a programmer, one of the main characteristics that you have should be that you're eager to learn and that you're able to adapt to change. And then we will all be fine, right? We will just adapt to how our environment is going to change. And I'm more curious what my job is going to look like in 5 years. But I'm pretty sure I will still love it, actually. So let's see.
Probably your job will not have the same name anymore, the same title. It will be different. But I think also we're in such a fast developing environment that I'm very, very sure my job will not exist in a few years anymore. And that's okay because I will do something else which is connected, but it will still be different. And yeah, that's also the field that we chose, right? We are aware that technology is changing, and this also makes it so interesting. So,
Definitely.
but what would you say? What are the skills for someone who gets newly into data science or comes out of a new field? Like coding is not necessary at all anymore. It's only prompting and only the no-code solutions.
I think it depends. I think the most important answer is what brings you most joy, because then you will get good in that. I think that's at least how I learned it. I loved programming from day zero, so to say. And that made me good in it at the end because it brought me joy and I was able to learn more and more and more about it. So I would say it depends on, I think data science and software development are anyways so different. I think the main thing that you have to bring is curiosity. And also don't be afraid to fail, because I fail from time to time. Last week I had to do Python and I was completely failing. I felt like a dumbass because I needed help by other experts in my team. And that's not going to stop, I guess, because we have to adapt and try new things all the time. But I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
I actually don't agree that data science and software engineering are far away. I believe like we all will be software engineers one day, right? You will just have like different flavors, right? So you might have ML flavor, but you still will be software engineer because this is where essentially the entire field is going right now. But in terms of the skills, this is a very good question. But I like that you said that you should be curious, right? Because if you are not curious, it will be quite overwhelming for you. You have to learn. And I guess this is where we all will agree. Regardless how it goes from now on, you will have to learn a lot of new things, right? So like ChatGPT would not help you. Or it might help you to learn it faster, but you still have to understand things, right? And another kind of very interesting movement I see right now is going into the kind of architecture thing, right? So how you design solution, because yes, there is no code things where you can just type and it will create some system for you, but you need to understand this kind of how to connect various pieces together, right? And here we are going towards system design and how to make this happen. And I believe AI would not be able to do this for us for quite some time now. So this is also maybe a good topic, especially for people who are looking at data science field. Don't just stop at learning classical ML or LLM or GenAI. Try to also look at ML system design, right? So it's quite kind of difficult topic, but I think it's worth it to look at this. What's about you?
Yeah. So I also think that the integration of new solutions becomes more important. So but we had it a bit before. So the standard programming will be not necessary anymore, but the integration of knowing how to work with API connections, as an example, will become more important to integrate it into the given solutions.
Mhm.
And then what you also said regarding the architecture design, it's always then depending also on the tech stack that is in the company, right?
Mhm.
So or the previous work that already has been done, some tech debt that everyone loves to maintain, so to say. So yeah, I think also that the statistical approach, so to say, becomes more common knowledge. That's also something that can be in a straightforward way be asked in the language models. And maybe even when you have some documentation uploaded and it has the background information, you even get the business logic, but the overall connection will still something where we as humans need to connect the dots. And what I'm always looking forward to, like our code base is also in the project, it's amazing. So I'm really curious when we are coming to the phase that I'm actually asking Copilot when it develops further on to check the whole code base and tell me where can I improve test coverage, the design in general. That would be amazing. And probably there are already solutions where we don't have the license for. That's why we are not using it. But that would be, I think, the game changer for many solutions, because then it also becomes more efficient, and we can, in a targeted way, address some aspects.
I mean, this. Don't tell your management that I told you. But in principle, you can get a plugin like ChatGPT plugin into your AGA, and when for the simple project, I'm not sure if it will work on the enterprise level, but for a simple project, it can actually do quite some, kind of engineering for you.
Yeah. No, officially, it's pretty strict regulation.
Right.
Of course, there are always some workarounds, and maybe you can also, all of us can share some tips on how they are using that. That's always a good one. But yeah, officially everyone is adhering to the policy in Wikipedia. When it comes about sharing code, when it's about code that is so generic that it can be shared, maybe, but when it's company specific code, then it's actually the question if you are allowed to
No. I would never do this maybe with, for the private project, and this is where you can play as much as you want. And this is why you can only taste this for very small projects, right? But yeah, I think I would never do this on the enterprise code, because God knows what happens.
But I think also some are not really aware when you just copy paste a snippet and then you have some information.
Right. Yeah. It's actually, there is this famous AI Act, right? So European AI Act. And I really love this paragraph which says you actually need to make sure that your people in your company, if they have access to AI, they actually get some education, right? And they get some like courses. On one hand, everyone is very worried about this, because you suddenly need to train a lot of people. But I do believe it's quite good, because someone needs to tell the people who are maybe quite far from developing AI that, you should not post these very secure documents into the ChatGPT chat and talk about this much.
Yeah. And that's also not only true for the company, it's also true for everyone around us, because how many friends did I see Google something in ChatGPT and they were not fact checking because they don't understand how it works. They don't know. And even information in the internet, you also have to question, but especially for LLMs, I make it my mission to explain all friends that use ChatGPT what hallucinations are, for example, because they just don't know that that happens. And then the answer is, oh, that's mean, but it's not mean. It's just the technology behind it and how it works. But people don't know. So not only the company needs education, but also everyone in our surrounding needs to know how to use these tools. Not to forget the CO2 production that ChatGPT search has compared to Google search. That's another point of that. Let's see how our climate behaves when we all start using AI. But yeah, I think the first thing that I try to educate people about is also what it is, how it works, and that they still have to check the facts behind everything that comes out of there.
Are there any further questions in the audience? Something you want to know?
What's your view on AI agents and how to use them as much as possible?
AI agents. So the question was how to use AI agents. If you use AI agents,
And how?
And how?
Well, I mean, in my team, we essentially built into solutions with AI agents, and the idea here to make something more complex compared to the plain LLMs, right? So the idea of agents, maybe I should explain this for the rest of people. What does it mean? So essentially, I mean, when we talk about LLM, we usually talk about generation of a text, right? So we type some question and we get the answer. And then, as Ellen just explained, there is this hallucination thing which you want to avoid, right? Or the answer which you can get might be not the one you expected, right? So not fulfilling the requirements, right? And it's totally fine if you do this like in one-to-one conversation, right? So if you ask something ChatGPT, you get the answer and you tell it to ChatGPT, it's a wrong answer. I wanted to hear this and that, right? So you kind of correct this on fly. But if you are thinking about automatization of your task, this becomes a bit more tricky because there is no human who would actually read the answers, right? And you try to automate this, and this is where AI agents come to the play. So this is essentially a kind of a program which reads the answer, and well, then it depends on the task. So the most classical task, it will check if it fulfills the requirements on the answer, right? Or it can do some other things, meaning like you can call, let's say, now I'm talking about programming, like it can call a function, right? So you can call a search on your behalf, or it might call some API of booking.com and do something on your behalf, right? So, I mean, essentially, the idea is very simple. So you have some program which checks the answer and does something based on this. But it's a very powerful idea because it can do absolutely everything, right? And then to make it even more crazy, you can have several agents which are like talking to each other, right? Checking each other and so on and so forth. So you can even build a little team. So I would say on the application side, especially in these like big enterprises, which are still quite conservative, we are more like, okay, we are just playing around with this. But I do see that we will implement a lot of solution based on this because this is a natural next step after LLM-based solution. On the user side, maybe it's still on the development side, it's quite tricky because the idea is simple, how you evaluate this stuff, right? So how you make sure that it does not do, especially if you're talking about several agents, what it does do what you want it to do. It's become very, very complicated topic. And I think here you can use it. Most of application we are using it for are kind of safe. Like if you do mistake, it's kind of cost you nothing more. But yeah, I would say it's very interesting, and I do understand like a lot of kind of hype around this tema, but I personally not sure if we will see a lot of actually business application, at least in the next year or two, because it's difficult to implement this.
I think also what you mentioned, the hype that we as an example see on LinkedIn currently, a lot of people are also speaking about automation,
right?
Not necessarily about AI agents. And I think it all now comes in one wave, and it's an amazing thing. I don't want to judge here. I also think it's very amazing, but I think that's where the hype comes from a bit. We in our company, we don't use it yet. I mean, I have members in my team who are playing around with a few things, also something connected to MR reviews as an example. But I agree with what you said. For the full automation of processes, agentic AI processes, it really depends on the business use case, because some of the stuff, if there are some failures, it can be really expensive.
Right.
So this approach of human in the loop is still very common, because then, and we talked about what are the future skills. Do we still need to code? Maybe we don't need the coders anymore. Now we have agentic AI and automation. Do we need the people still doing the jobs? And I think the focus is on enabling currently. So there will be, as I said, the human in the loop. Yeah. I don't know, Ellen, how is it in your?
Yeah, just two things to add. So in my company, we do have the AI taking specific decisions for the customer so that the customer doesn't have to do that on their own. But one thing that is equally important is make that transparent, because users would then approach our customer care saying, hey, why did the AI do this and that? And then we have to be able to find out the reasoning of the AI. So I think it goes hand in hand, incorporating AI agents, but also being able to understand or make it transparent what happens and why that happens.
And what comes on top, it's also quite a few customers requesting not to use their data for any AI applications. That's at least what we see. And then you need to make also sure legally that the data is not used. So it's, yeah. On one hand, we want to mirror the data as realistically as possible. On the other hand, there are also a lot of legal requirements now coming in. And I think it's becoming more and more that companies are aware that their data is also used.
Yeah. But I actually do the same. Whenever there's, for example, Doctolib just came out with an AI feature, and that's the first that I turn off, actually, personally. So I completely understand it so my developer heart is a bit crying, but my personal heart says, yeah, I will also turn it off. So yeah, two hearts.
Yeah. Any further questions? Maybe one of you has a question to the other. That's also because in the chat, I think we also don't have any questions. Else I have one, or yeah, go ahead.
No, I just wanted to kind of hear opinion from the rooms. But so we were talking about this: do you need to code or not? Like, should you worry or not? So I think we all three kind of agree we should not worry. But I just wonder about the rest of the room. If you feel like your own role under a threat, or you're not sure how it will go from here, are you trying to catch up and learn an AI? After you're far away from it, or what is your take on it? If anyone wants to speak, please.
I would say this would be similar to like 70s, 80s, that people were more into programming. They had to learn how to talk to an electronic device and put their thoughts into code in order to get something, an output, let's say. In this case, we need to also talk to something, which is here AI. We need to know how to prompt, but at the same time, this evolves during time, and maybe we won't be programmers per se, but we will be prompters or some sort of engineers that try to just improve the system over and over, like the programming itself that we had, like languages. Currently, we have some high-level languages in comparison to low-level languages that we had in the past. This would be the same approach, I would say. So I don't feel threatened by it. Yeah.
Great. Maybe just out of curiosity, headcount, can you raise your hand if you're a developer yourself, like if you're writing the code and getting paid for this?
so the voluntary side projects are,
Yeah, so we
are
have
not
like
counted.
half of the room actually are developers, so it's nice.
I don't know. I mean, we talked about, or I think Ellen said that her job in 5 years will not look the same. I think my job will look exactly the same. There will be a lot of chaos, a lot of legacy system, a lot of things and tickets to resolve because software is so complicated and so big and so irrational, and that's how it continues through the years. And so this kind of skills, what you were saying, somebody who would know how to prompt, somebody who would know what information to get, how to connect the pieces together, the puzzles, talk to the people, business requirements, project management, that will not be resolved quickly or taken over by AI. And let's not forget that we have so many companies and we have lots of startups and they're so innovative and in AI, but we have a lot of corporations where the real money is, and they are just sinking in this old legacy software, which people don't know what to do with, and it just yeah, the reality right now for many. I don't know, you're from Vattenfall, would you sign up to this?
Absolutely. I was just thinking while you were talking, I think I missed like second half, sorry for this, because I remember like if anyone needs a career advice, like you want to get a job and you're not sure what to learn, SIP is actually a very big field where it's extremely difficult to find the talent, and we are facing this right now. So we have SIP, we have a lot of legacy system.
Yeah.
Yes, we have a lot of legacy system, and it's extremely difficult to find people. And not my team, but neighboring team is very concerned because some of the people will retire soon, and they don't have replacement. Right, so and this is exactly what you mentioned. So it's like there are many systems which are like, I doubt the GenAI will catch up with them because they're also not publicly available, so to speak, right? So most of SAP system on-prem, which means like there is no public data in the internet. LLM can learn from.
It's also
If I may give my opinion, I think it's true that the jobs will look somehow the same, but I think that the competitive landscape of the companies will change rapidly because we need like much less people to develop the same quality of software that we had like 10 years ago. And so I think that it's true I mean, I was a developer, now I'm more of a PM. I think it's true that the job itself will be the same, but the competitive landscape, I think, is going to drastically accelerate. And you divide basically the number of people you need to build the software, meaning to launch the software, you don't need 30 people anymore, but maybe 10 or 15. And that's on the large scale, that's a massive changer, game changer, I think. And also a threat for businesses because then the barriers to entry are much lower. I'm myself on the project to launch like a software that has some AI capabilities. And like 20 years ago, I mean, you know it for sure, you would have needed much more like human power to do it. And now some developers can use these coding help. So first of all, they can develop faster. And second, by using some APIs of like OpenAI or even some open source models, we can also have almost like for free or almost for free some AI capabilities inside. So I think this drastically accelerates the landscape. So there's an indirect consequence on the jobs themselves because some companies can be threatened. I mean, the legacy players, like some small competitors have the same tools as legacy players. So there's the rebalancing happening, I think. But it's true that the jobs themselves would somehow stay the same, in my opinion.
I find it also very interesting because, yeah, some of the business models are just erased, like they're not working anymore. And I think a lot of companies now need to look for the gap that they're filling, which can, on one hand, foster some innovation, but it will also lead to the closure of a lot of companies. And with the with what you said about the PM roles and the skills, I remember like I think 2 years ago or something, like it was always said AI can never be creative. That's a human capability. We are creative. And we see nowadays it can be very much creative. So I'm wondering also if there can't be an AI PM asking the right question, doing some stakeholder management. So at some point, and not doing the detailed the detailed nuances that you have in this human interactions, but some of the basics I can well imagine that they are somehow taken over.
But
Yeah.
you have to remember, but with basics, I must be provided somewhere, right? And I guess this is why PM role might not disappear very quickly, because there are many things which are not really on the surface, right? So you need to know like how your organization works, what are the various parts, what are the things which might go wrong, right? And this is something which is not written somewhere. This is why many people also struggle when they especially join a big company in the very beginning, because you're simply not connected, right? So you can have a fantastic onboarding which tells you what you're doing and how you're supposed to do things, but it still does not help you to get your job done, right? And it takes some time to
We have one question here. Do you have an advice for someone transitioning to a career in IT regarding AI skills? What would be useful? We touched this a bit, but maybe now it's the time also to share some advice or best practices on how to get started. And stay ahead, of course. We've heard it now. Like it will be very competitive, maybe.
Are we talking about like general AI skills?
I think
IT
regarding AI skills.
I guess Ellen might be a better expert here as an actual developer. What are the skills you actually need from AI perspective?
So first of all, I would say play around with AI tools that are out there and find out how they can help you best with what you want to do. Like we had the one woman in the audience saying she uses it when she tries to learn a new language. If that works for you, play around with it. Also, maybe get a basic understanding of what does AI skill mean for you. I mean, there's depending on, do you want a prompt? Do you want to do data visualizations? There's lots of different things that can be. So I think it depends on your use case, and maybe narrow down that use case. How do you want to make use of the AI in the end? What do you want to solve? Because just putting AI skills in your CV won't help you. In the end, we want to get faster either in learning things or in implementing things. I think just question yourself, what do you want to use it for? And then start from there, maybe.
Maybe for people who would like.
And then just, sorry, one more addition. And then you can even ask the AI how the AI can help you best, or what's the first skill that you can learn. So that's maybe even the first trick. So for me,
Yeah.
Sorry?
It can even create a learning path, right? But
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Exactly. And I think maybe the most important skill is to question the AI. Because I think that we tend to trust an algorithm because it's an algorithm and it will say the right thing. But don't forget that an algorithm can have mistakes and it recreates biases as well. So always keep that question mark in your head when you get an answer from AI, and question the AI. I think that's the most important skill for me, at least. But don't be afraid. Don't be afraid, but question them.
Right.
But no, I learned it. Don't be afraid, but be alert.
Be alert, that's nice.
Yeah,
That's
nice.
You have to look critically at this, right? So not just take it like a truth just because I told you so, right? So it might hallucinate, it might be misleading, it might be based on some information which is not reflecting the entire kind of background of your question, right? Speaking about learning path, I do believe it's better to ask your friend who might be more experienced in this, if the learning path they are created for you makes sense, before you invest months of learning it, because it's still
months and money maybe as well, because often it also costs something. Yeah.
Right. Maybe for people who would like to develop something with AI, I mean, obviously, the all technologies which I used are worth to learn, right? Because this is something I believe, will keep using, like LLMs. But one needs to be reminded that GenAI is not everything. There are many use cases where you don't need GenAI, and they're still quite needed in most of the companies, especially if we're talking about Germany. Because many use cases you will see as a part of big enterprise will be quite far from GenAI, to be honest. So,
yeah, I completely agree, and that's also where the cost aspect and the efficiency aspect comes in. In the end, what do we want to do? We want to automate a process, or we want to find a solution for the business. So it can be even more appropriate to use a traditional AI solution and not necessarily GenAI. And then the question is, okay, and then that's also the point where I completely agree. We need this critical thinking and maybe also rational thinking and questioning ourselves all the time again. Yeah, I think that's also one of the most important skills. And this, in general, transitioning to IT, I think the definition of IT really varies broadly among the companies. Some are still very conservative, some are going ahead and are more innovative. Probably the many startups, as you said, are more innovative. So the AI skills that are required to catch up with the company are probably very differently. But I also agree that I think starting from an intrinsic motivation, a use case, something that you want to apply for your private life or for a sidekick, that's a good start. Yeah.
Yeah, just to underline that we are all problem solvers. So maybe take a problem and then think about what AI skill would help you with. Yeah. Any more tips from the audience? Maybe I can't hear you, but I'm at least talking. I can't see you, but I'm at least talking to you. Any tips from the audience?
What were I mean, there are also half of the people who were not necessarily coming from the programming side. So what were the first AI skills that you used that got you started?
I think for me, I find it very hard to. AI skill is a very umbrella term. Is it like getting something out of AI? Then we're talking about prompting and knowing how to ask it the right question. There's this really good example of showing how important it is to know how to talk to AI, which is, I might be remembering it incorrectly, but I think there was one example which went very viral. Say, like, if you ask it, who is, what's that actor? Tom Cruise, right? Mm-hmm. Who is Tom Cruise's mother? You will get an answer, her name. And then if you ask, what is her name? I don't remember. Her son, then it says, I don't know. And then the very short example kind of illustrates that to get to the right information, you also need to know how to give it the right context and why context is important. And with that context, asking it in the correct way will give you a much better answer. So I think in some ways, the first AI skill that I organically acquired was just using it as asking it questions like, okay, now what? And now this, okay, please do this. To going from that to asking it very meaningfully, very precisely, this is the problem, this is your job, and do this. And then using different models to start to get much better answers to a problem at time.
Yeah.
I have one more skill. Also, I didn't fact check that, but being polite to your AI also gives you better results. So just say please and thank you might help you with a better result as well. I mean, it somehow makes sense, right? If it tries to simulate how we speak, for example, or if that's how it learned. I think I would also give better answers to someone that is polite to me, actually.
And maybe what's also a good tip is, I mean, in the begin, I mean, the LLMs are becoming better in the way that the prompts do not need to be as precise as they have been before, right? Also with bad prompts, you get a good result. But I think choosing a prompting framework just for yourself to get used to it and to really clearly emphasize, I want to have a report, this should have 5 different subpoints and so on. So really the way of speaking to the bots is just something that we also need to learn, like learning a new language, right? And I think having this framework in mind makes it also a bit easier than just writing 2 sentences and then being sad that something comes out, but not necessarily what we expected. And what you also mentioned is this critical questioning of the results doesn't only mean that we have a result and now we try to think about if it really makes sense and maybe use Google. We can also ask back, how did you come to this result? What are the sources that you used? As an example, I was once asking for a framework and then it came up with a framework that was really amazing. And at some point I was asking, is this really a framework that exists? And the answer was no. So, but it was so convincing, and I think that's the way. Like, also, it's a proper conversation where we also can, critically question if it really makes sense. And maybe in a conversation that we have, I wouldn't ask you, I would ask you maybe, are you really sure? But probably some of the other things, because we are seeing each other, we have the body language and everything together, we would phrase it differently, but that's the part that is really important in interacting with AI or with the chatbots.
Yeah.
Definitely. Also, one anecdote to that one. Sorry, I don't see if anyone's trying to speak in the audience. I was trying to find the number of how many Hello World programs were ever written in the past, and I was just asking ChatGPT, hey, do you know that? Like, what do you think? How many are there? And it was just giving me hard numbers. And I was like, wow, that's nice. And then I was asking for links. Where did you find that information? And then it revealed, oh no, this was just an estimate, la la la. So like, I really like your advice of asking back, how did you come up with that? Yeah. Kind of giving some mental load back to the AI somehow.
There's one thing that I have several times I have tried to convince ChatGPT that it's saying something wrong, which I'm pretty sure it's correct, and it gets convinced soon, which I don't like it. So I would say there might be a new concept in the future, like a supervisor for AIs, which is AI, and you can check, for example, if you ask a question and DeepSeek says something, ChatGPT says something else, and this one gathers everything together to see if there's some, if there's some problems or there's some sort of bias. Because I'm not sure if you have talked to DeepSeek a lot, but if you ask about some politicians of China or some former things like Tiananmen Square, whatever, it denies it. So we should have something overarching for these kind of elements. So we have a better and more solid solutions that we can just rely on.
And that's also, we covered the aspect of biases, right? And sometimes how do they solve it? They just put some heuristics on top. And also most of the LLMs that we're working with are from the Western world. They're also in particular from the US, and also the US has some opinions, let's phrase it like this. And yeah, that's a very good point. We need to make ourselves aware, where does the information come from? And also, it's still a money-making machine. There's still a purpose behind it, right? Not all opinions should be spread. And for some opinions, it totally makes sense. But for some other critical stuff, yeah.
It's interesting. I like your thought, because I heard about some routing models, which basically enable you to test which model would have the better performance in terms of basically price and speed. And you could also apply this idea of like comparing different models in terms of content to see maybe we test one question over like 10 models and we see, okay, like 6 of them have a similar answer and like 3 have like unique answers, so maybe different, so it makes also sense to check. So it doesn't exist, but I say, or
There's actually this arena, I don't remember it.
Yeah.
Their whole job is to compare these models. So I haven't been there exactly, but essentially how it works is imagine there are 3 or 4 models, and you would ask it a question, like a programming question, for example, and then it would give output. And then it's just basically like in chess, two grandmasters like fighting each other and who wins. So they're basically saying like which output is better, and then they're ranking these models. There's this website, Model Arena, or I don't know exactly the name, and they're constantly saying like this one performed better on these tasks, and because now there are so many models, who's supposed to know what?
Yeah, there are several tools doing that. And as an example, Hugging Face is also offering a bias detector. So you have, you can tell or show next to each other certain image generators and check. Yeah.
Just in addition to his comments, how is it possible, or how can this model arena, you said, be sure which answer is correct? How can this decide it?
I think that here humans are doing that.
Okay.
So their output, and then they're human rankers. They don't know which model. They never get to see that this one is by GPT-4 or this one is by Anthropic or whatever. But they just get to say, okay, I like this output better, or I like this output better. And over time, like thousands and a lot of thumbs up, thumbs out later,
Okay.
there is now this
They're
ranking.
also getting feedback.
Yes,
back,
exactly.
so it's
Here-
kind of learning algorithm.
I think so. Maybe that as well. That the algorithm itself is also learning. But here, their main purpose is to just like give it. Do they like it or do they not like it? Rank them without where which model is answer, and then the arena.
So it's like a statistical, it's like an average. On average,
Yeah.
number 1, you have
Yeah.
it's based in 80%.
Yeah, exactly. But it's a bit more complicated because they don't let, for example, there could be a new model which isn't as sophisticated, let's say. And then let's assume that ChatGPT 4 or whatever 4.0 is the most sophisticated one. So they're not comparing the really shitty new model with the better one, because the better one will always win. It's always going to be much better at giving outputs. So they're kind of ranking similar level players with each other, kind of like you do in games. And then they're ranking, and people are looking at answers that are coming from similar level models without really knowing the name of the model, and then ranking them. And so after a lot of these feedback, we get a list of
It makes sense because you have like big models that are either expensive or very heavy, or both, and you have small models that
exactly.
are very fast to run, and you run them on your phone even, so it makes sense to compare them in
On their level, yeah.
Well,
Otherwise,
depends
it would be-
what is better, what you define by better, because it's a very good example we gave, like an algorithm or AI which is programmed to withhold some political information. Yeah, so maybe DeepSeek is a very good model or the best, But for certain things, it's not reliable. Everyone then stays in their bubble. And what you were saying that, who are these people who be rating?
I don't know. I just know that this is how it works.
No, but this is- I mean-
it essentially could be moderators like us, right?
Yeah.
And it could be
Mhm.
we are 5,000 programmers and we are rating. So I would assume there's also like, this model we are rating on this particular line of tasks, not political knowledge, not what spits out the best recipes, but like very specific thing. Most I know about it is, okay, it exists and how it's done. And if you ever are curious about what's the good model for this, because now people are starting to ask a lot of questions about, okay, I want to learn something new. Which one should I pick, right? Because at some point you also want to pay for them. I started paying for ChatGPT 2 years ago, and now I'm realizing it's not great for everything. So I'm going to different places. So I want to know what's the best model, and then sometimes I go to Arena to figure out what's upcoming, what's new, what's best for this.
Can I add something to that? So I think it's also not only about which model should I pick, it's also about the configurations of that model, because I don't know all the like hard vocabulary here, but there's, for example, properties that you can set, which is, for example, the temperature, which if it's higher or lower, the model is more creative with the answers, for example. So it's also to play around not with just the model, but also with the settings that you use with the model. If you want it to be very plain and make it less hallucinating, then you choose a lower temperature, for example. If you want to use it for crazy ideas and you want to have some, I don't know, random things that you didn't think about before, maybe a higher temperature is better suited to your use case, but you shouldn't use it to write a political post, for example.
You also wanted to say something?
I think you already covered this very well.
Maybe, yeah, just to closely wrap up, maybe we can do a quick round. Whoever wants to share the favorite AI tool or tools. We talked about Cursor, ChatGPT, but maybe there are some other tools that you are using and that you can recommend.
I would recommend also Notebook LM. I don't remember who mentioned it.
LM.
It's very nice. So it's basically.
Can you repeat that? Sorry.
Notebook LM.
Oh, okay.
So it's basically a tool you can upload some documents and you can chat with these documents to extract information, but it can also generate a podcast, like we're doing right now, between two fictive people. And it's literally a conversation about the document you uploaded. So I'm doing this, for example, with like PDFs I find online of like 20, 50 pages. And I say, okay, generate just a 15-minute talk to tell me what it's about. And then I listen to this in the metro, and then so it's nice. It gives you like a good overview of the document in a fun way. It's a podcast. It's nice to hear, so it's interesting. Yeah.
And you can do the same with YouTube videos and everything, right? Not only PDFs. Yeah, it's amazing. Any
Can
further?
I add? Sorry. Can I add mine because it's connected to that one? So podcasting is also helping, or in general, text to speech helps people with dyslexia, for example, a lot, who can't read or understand long texts. They can turn it to speech and then have more access to information in written form that they normally couldn't digest so easily.
There's also another interesting tool. I don't use it too much, but I was mind blown when I used it. It's by Gemini. So if you go to their website and you find one of their tools is called like Stream Real Time. Have you used that? And so essentially, so it's like ChatGPT. You go to this website and but there's one of the options which is Stream Real Time. And what it does is, as soon as you click on that button, it's as if a meeting just started. So, like, when you enter a Google Meet, like you hear that noise, bloom. And so it's essentially the computer. It gives the computer access to look at your own screen. And sometimes when I'm using a new tool, I was doing something dumb on WordPress, and WordPress has changed in the last 10 years that I was last on there. So I had to look up a setting, but all the YouTube tutorials were annoying. So I went to Stream Real Time and I asked it, and I said, hey, if you look at my screen, I just want to change one setting, and this is what I want to do. Can you tell me where it is? And it said, okay, I see that you're on the screen. And it basically, I thought, okay, I can pretty much use any complicated tool. Like I'm super into making digital art, right? But sometimes all your brushes and all your settings are in different places and you don't know where to find them, and you don't want to find them. And so having a tool that's like, okay, looking at your screen and helping you as you go along, how cool is that for someone who's learning? So I'm just amazed by these tools, not only to use them or build them later on, but to learn. Which is, if you're ever learning something or using a new tool, try out the Gemini. It's called Stream Real Time, and it's amazing.
And how do you make sure it doesn't have access to your information?
I use it for my private projects. I assume that it will. I just don't have super personal information on my laptop. That's how I give myself some sort of sanity to, because at one point I also want to use a lot of these tools, like experiment with them, use with them, see what's good, see what's bad. At the same time, I don't want to expose myself too much. So I try not to have any personal information on that device. And
How many devices do you have?
I just have like a one that I'm using for this, and then a personal one that I don't use so often. Yeah.
Because that's the thing that sometimes holding me back,
Yeah.
back testing. It's
Yeah.
what I'm giving it access to.
Yeah.
I got a question to the people around here. Has someone tried the Claude Sonnet computer use, where Claude is basically taking over your computer, doing things for you, by clicking on your screen? Has someone? I know it's a bit scary, I know, but like, has someone tried it?
What is it?
It's by Anthropic, so it's Claude Sonnet. There's a version of the model of release that is able to basically take over your mouse on your screen, and that can complete tasks on your screen by clicking, just like you would click.
What's the use case for
Booking vacation as an example, automatically, all these kind of things.
Or
Buying
even
something.
like learn a new tool, like instead of get an instruction what you should do, it will do it for you if it's something you don't want to learn but just need to get done. No, I think this tool is quite interesting. I didn't try it myself because it's also quite scary. But I think the idea is pretty scary indeed, because you essentially give access to the entire computer, right? So it's very different compared to what you described, when you just kind of, it's like a screen sharing. So you just show your screen and you can select what you show, right? And you just task, and it's essentially like a computer vision which recognizes what is happening and gives you some advices, right? So this thing is much more powerful because it's essentially can click stuff and can kind of find a way through it.
Yeah. Would you trust it, like to book a vacation, to pay? That would be the best price.
If you program it in the, like, I probably wouldn't do it, but you can, if you have the right prompt and set the right guidelines, then it cannot book everything, right? So it always depends on how you set it up.
Or if you order to book it, only if you can cancel it later, right? So if you
Yeah,
check,
as an
then you can
accessory.
check. If you don't like it, you can cancel it. Right? So
Or have
for
human
free.
in the loop approach, which
Right,
is like,
right.
just give me
Yeah,
what's
this
the
is actually
best thing.
this is the most kind of safe option. Most probably, like, it's kind of, finds the best option and then sends you for the approval,
Yeah.
which would be pretty cool. I can share my favorite. I don't have like a tool, but I think most of the tools nowadays, like ChatGPT, Perplexity, and so on, they have this deep research option, which I absolutely love. I use it like every day now. Essentially, what it does, it's like a little button, right? So if you're in ChatGPT a lot, there is a search button you can click, so it will do the search on your behalf by kind of completing your prompt. And this deep research is one step further, so you can ask it to do research, like look at all the information it can find, and then create a report for you. And then you have like a link, so you can check it out if it actually exists, right? But I really like it for complicated questions, like we were talking about learning path and so on, right? So if you just ask ChatGPT for the learning path, you most probably will get like meh answer, because sounds reasonable, but what do I do with it? And here you can really kind of specify what exactly you want, what is your level, and ask it to find the right kind of program or create the right program for you. Or recipe, it's actually great in cooking, I must say. So this is a very, very nice kind of step forward.
You just posted, Ellen, like Clara antwortet. What is this? You can also share.
Yeah, that's my current favorite AI tool. It's in German. I just tried to find if it has a language option, but it's a tool that a friend of mine developed, and it's made for fake information or misinformation in the internet, like social media. And you can just copy paste a mean comment or whatever onto that website. And then this AI tool tries to formulate an answer. And also, what's even nicer is it gives you information about fact checking. So things that you can yourself read up on, that you can use in a discussion with a person that you, for example, talk about, I don't know, your uncle that hates women. You can just use that tool to be able to answer that person in a good way. That's an AI tool that I find really nice. I use it.
Perfect. Anyone else who wants to share? If not, yeah, thanks a lot. It was really interesting exchange. Also, thank you to the panelists. And yeah, if you want to have further discussions, we now have the possibility. There are also some snacks in the background, so get yourself drinks and snacks. And thanks a lot.